Welcome to the Entrepreneur Spouse Support Broadcast, a weekly 15-minute broadcast with your host, Joanie Winberg. Learn how to work, love, and survive life with an entrepreneur. Our special guests will be sharing tips, tools, and their success stories to help support entrepreneur spouses and their families. And now here's Joanie.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Spouse Support Broadcast, how to work, love, and survive life with an entrepreneur. Hello, I'm Joanie Winberg, host of this broadcast, as well as facilitator of the 8-week Entrepreneur Spouse Support Program. We have a great show today. We're going to talk about how to keep your couplepreneur relationship juicy and focused. My special guest today is Lois Barth, who is actually a human development expert, speaker, author, and life business coach. So unmute yourself, Lois, and join me.
Hi, Joanie. I am so excited to be on the program today. It's a juicy topic, and we're going to get really juicy with it.
I love it. The juicier, the better. So once again, we're going to talk about how to keep your couplepreneur relationship juicy and focused. And we know with entrepreneurs, we're so focused. We're all in, we focus on that, and sometimes forget about everything and everybody else in our lives.
Absolutely.
And we want to keep that couple relationship together because the last thing we want is people to get divorced and move on. So let's dig in. So
you got it.
Get us started, Lois.
Sure. Well, it's a great topic, how to keep the relationship juicy, the trifecta of juiciness within the first 30 seconds. Thank you very much. Obviously, it's a topic top of mind, but there's many different ways to do it. And it can be, when I wrote my book, Courage to Sparkle, I didn't want it to be like, I'm working on myself, terminal earnestness. There's a spirit of playfulness and creativity. To me, working on ourselves and our relationship can be something really robust and fun and playful. So I'll just launch in with some of the thoughts that I had for myself around my own, when I was in a relationship we were couplepreneurs. In a way, I was the entrepreneur, he's the dentist. I was going to say he was a dentist as if he's not anymore, but yes, he still is. And one of the things to talk about really is the good enough work-life fit. I don't know about you, Joanie, but I am so sick of this work-life balance, It doesn't exist. And it puts this enormous pressure on us, and especially as women, to look at this perfect status scale, which doesn't exist. Everything in nature is cycles and rhythms and messiness and beauty, and it's no different with the work life. So what I suggest to my clients that I work with and in my own life is find a good enough work-life fit. And that's really about clarifying what does that look like. In every couple, it looks different. What's your thoughts on that?
To me, that lets me let go.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to be good enough. And life, like you said, there's rhythms and life changes so quickly. I remember someone saying, oh my goodness, I have to wait 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks? That's gone already. It's like, just go with the flow and accept sometimes what is okay. It's
absolutely
good enough. I love it.
And it's really about, as a couple, make it your own. A colleague of mine, she is a hardcore serial entrepreneur. Her husband's an attorney. They have an incredible marriage. They both play big in the world, so they're good enough. Work-life fit is when she gets hired to do a lot of consulting and a lot of speaking, she has an agreement in her contract. More than a week, she gets 2 business class tickets, and her husband takes up and travels with her, and vice versa. And they made that agreement right off the bat. And now some of the people who might be listening, isn't that great? Some of you out there might be listening and saying, well, that's nice when you have that luxury, but we can truncate our own version of that. So some examples just to kind of throw out, because I know for me, it always helps to have examples, is when you work-life fits, if both of you are in a very intense time, you might say 6 to 8 o'clock is family dinner time, and we do things together. And even if we talk about work, it's in a collaborative, fun way that includes the family. And one of my favorite memories was growing up. My dad worked for TV, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. But when he came home from work, he would talk about work in such a collaborative way that he would include my mom. And I remember one funny little story when this guy was giving my dad a hard time, and my mother was a brilliant emotional intelligence person even before. And she'd say, "Ben, how tall is he?" And he said, "Kiddo, how tall is he, Ben?" And he'd say, "Kiddo, tell me." And he'd say, 5'4". Napoleonic complex. Does he have hair? He'd say, "Kiddo, does he have hair?" And he said, "No, he's bald." You're 6'1" and you got a full head of hair. There it is right there, Ben. And he would always nail it. Just nail it. And he couldn't wait to come home to deconstruct his day. And because he was an engineer, he didn't have the people skills. And my mother, step by step. And so it wasn't like, oh, he comes home and he just talks about his work. He included her in it. And she would do the same for him. So everybody has to have their own work-life fit. And
what I love about that is just the humor. Yeah. I have learned probably the hard way in life that a little humor goes a long way, and it just helps everyone let go, lighten up, and laugh.
Exactly.
And I've learned to do that. I'm so grateful I have. Like anytime I just you see the intensity growing, it's like, all right, this is not that big of a deal. Let's just have fun with it and roll with it.
Absolutely. So, take a giant chill pill.
Chill pill. And, the thing of it is, what I love what you're saying is that they can come home and it's good enough. No one's judging. No one's trying to fix it, or you should do this. It's just like giving that person the respect and the freedom just to kind of maybe vent a little bit, laugh, joke about it. Is he tall or short, bald or hair?
And to have some unsaid and said agreements. Mm-hmm. When do we take a break from work? When do we connect? That's so important.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I love it. That's a great one. So to me, it's good enough.
Excuse me.
So what's another great point there you'd like to, I know one that you did mention to me about dial D for date night. But you know what I love, what you added to it was that it's life and death to keep the juiciness alive.
Absolutely.
That's right on.
Because otherwise you're in TRS, terminal roommate syndrome. I love acronyms and I love alliteration, so buckle your seatbelt, right? For me, dial D for date night really locks in the juiciness and the reason why you both got together, because there was simpatico, there was connection, and you have to be very protective of that. So one of my clients, he's a very former client, very successful real estate guy, but wanted to go up 2 or 3 tiers, and we saw as hard as he was going to work, he had to be more strategic, but he was going to put in heavy duty hours. So he said, I'm really concerned because my wife and my kids are everything to me. I wouldn't be working so hard if it wasn't to provide a lifestyle, and my wife feels the same way about her job. And I said, no biggie, dial D for date night. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I said, I want you to protect 1 or 2 days a week. He said, 1 or 2 days a week? He said, even once a month is challenging. And I said, once a week, your coach tells you. And so he said, you're right. And I said, and I want you to do date night and lock it in with the babysitter. She knows that she's got a steady gig. It's great for her. The kids know it. It's sending a really good message to them. And he said, I really like this idea. I said, and again, I co-opted a little from my mom and dad because they were huge influences. I said, but add a little fun to it. Don't do like every week it's a movie. And I said, what about a mystery date night? Because my dad used to take my mom on mystery trips, and have a mystery date night where each week you trade off surprising the other person what it is with really cool things. And they really got into it, and they could acknowledge each other, and that was so much fun. And they tried really bizarre things like, what do they call it? Axe throwing, but then cool museum exhibits, but then a garden tour. It was really fun. And when we did a lot of different work in coaching together, and ironically, with all the brand building and strategic marketing, he said, hands down, the most important part of his work with our work together was D for date night.
Oh.
He said because they already had a phenomenal marriage, but with two youngins and two big businesses,
you don't want to lose it.
You don't want to lose it. And you don't want to feel like all your talk is about logistics and the kids. So,
but to me, what's really important here is that they set a date, but they marked it on their calendar as part of their life, their style, or what's going on, their schedule for the week. It wasn't like, okay, when we get around to it, oh yeah, you want to do something Friday? Okay, let's do something. But like you said, I love the way they set it up. The kids were not going to be surprised. The babysitter was already there. And then I love the mystery part, because I know I did have a couple myself. One, the gal was a little bit more analytical and needed a little bit more detailed so that she could plan on what to wear and not too many surprises. So he met us halfway and said, okay, this is what you would need to prepare for. And that helped her relax, because she was kind of getting upset about that. But
exactly. And work. And I borrowed something from you, Joanie. Mm-hmm. They were talking about schedules, and I said, Wednesday, you used to call it, I think, hump day. And I said, why? I remember that. Yeah. I co-opted your genius. Gave you credit, though. And they actually, most of their days were Wednesdays. I said, because midweek is when the fatigue sets in. You're starting to feel like a grind. The weekends, usually you have a lot of social plans. Yeah. And they really, and to your point, we made an agreement that if they canceled the appointment, they would treat the appointment like their most valuable client, that it would be, hell or high water. But if they had to move it, they had to commit to another time before giving up that time slot.
Or a 24-hour notice.
Yeah, exactly. And in 5 years, I think they had to reschedule 4 or 5 times. That's it, because they held it at such esteem, such a high priority.
I love that. I love it. But it's setting up those boundaries to the point where it's going to help de-stress and I bet you they got so they really looked forward to it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
They would joke with each other. They'd say, when things got stressful, they'd look over and go, date night.
Well, the anticipation gets juicy too. So.
Exactly.
So I know we're talking about humor, and that's one of my favorite things. And you're mentioning here, find the fun or find how it can keep it funny even if you're in a funk. So, similar to what we were just talking about, but take it off from here.
Well, I think it's very important to find the funny even in the funk. And as a recovering stand-up comic with, 6 years under my belt and motivational speaker and a lot of things, people feel very confronted by, funny. They think it's like wearing a red nose or a punchline or practicing routine. It's nothing. It's having a spirit of playfulness in your life. That's all that humor is. It's just a perspective. It's seeing the absurdity and the ridiculousness. And, I had a couple that I was coaching, and she was a little bit of the absent-minded professor, very bright in her career, but leave the cabinet doors open, the caps on the salad dressing, he would go to open it, it would go flying down. And then she would leave a sponge in the sink. And, we were working together, and he's like, why does she do that? I said, can you find the funny? So they actually created a little routine that every time the sponge was in the sink, and he was actually really a fun guy. He would go, he said, sponge alert, warning. And she would play, officer, I'm sorry. And he's like, lady, you're on probation, sponge alert. And she's like, I'll do better next time. And they would just make a routine. And so it was it was sending a message, and after a while, she was a little better with her sponges, not much, but it broke the tension and it got the message. So if you can do that, it makes all the difference in the world. It's not about being in denial or passive aggressive. So. Well,
you can see how probably a lot of couples go the opposite way. They get frustrated and the passive aggressiveness does kick in.
Absolutely.
And then it goes down the tubes from there. And so I mean, to me, it's just, I don't know. I just, once again, kind of reiterated what I said before. It's just lighten up.
Exactly.
And let go and have some fun. And I think the biggest thing that I learned through my years of coaching and divorce and so forth, I just learned to laugh at myself.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's probably I thought, oh my God, you really said that? Oh, it's like, it's like, okay, we won't do that one again,
Exactly. Insert foot, a gymnast, a verbal gymnast, insert. But no, Joni, you're so right, because when we can laugh at ourselves, we lighten up. We don't take ourselves so seriously. Our commitment to move forward actually gets stronger because it's not so rigid. It's no longer, critical. As human beings, I find us infinitely fascinating and quirky and wonderful. And it's often the flaws that are so much more fun than the put together pieces. So,
and none of us are perfect. We all have our own list of flaws. So
exactly. Boy, is that true.
So kind of just let them go and laugh at them. One of the points that you wanted to also talk about was moving from criticism to curiosity. And this sounds nice and juicy.
This one is particular. This one's juicy and spicy at the same time.
I love it.
This is full disclosure for with me and my ex and I. And I think many of you folks out there can relate to it. So I am he's one of those naturally thin people. Don't hate him. He's basically a nice guy. He's whatever he wants. He's got a slight gut, but very little. He jokes that he can still wear the same disco suit that he wore in the 70s, to which I say, just because you wear it doesn't mean you should, just because you can. But so exactly. And so when you're naturally, when you do something naturally, sometimes you have less patience for people who really struggle with something, right? Because it comes naturally. So one of my things is a recreational eater, which would drive him crazy. I think all the ladies and some guys out there totally relate. Instead of taking a bowl of chips and putting into a bag of chips, I would go to get the 5-6 chips, close the bag, go back 10 minutes later, open the bag, and I would do this, and it would drive him crazy. And one night we were both overtired, and he started to lose it and go, "Why do you keep going back and forth? Why don't you just put the bags?" And I said, "I'm going to buy my own bag. Why does it bother you?" And I've maintained a 45-pound weight loss now for 30 years. So
wow.
And I stormed out of the house and I said, "Stop micromanaging my food!" Ah! So I blew off some steam. I know some of you can imagine, some of you can relate. And so I blew off some steam and I went for a walk for 30 minutes and I pulled what I called my inner Dr. Phil. And I said, "How's this working for you, Lo? You talk about criticism to curiosity, be your own client." And I breathed, sometimes when you have a little space. And I said, "He's a decent guy. Something's up that he feels the need to control me." And he triggered me. I got triggered. And I said, "Why don't I find out?" So I went back, and to his credit, he had this the little sad Sam look on his face. He wrote a little note. He had a little silly flower. Of course, it was plastic. But anyway, it's just. And I said, "You know what? Let's talk." And I said, I'm really curious. Can you tell me what upsets you about me going back and forth? Are you afraid I'm going to get fat and you won't be attracted to me? And it's so not. I never felt pressure from him. No. And I kept asking questions. Well, if you don't, if you eat the bag of chips, you won't feel good about yourself. Okay. And if I don't feel good about myself, well, you'll feel tired. I go, okay. And if I feel tired and ... shock of all shocks, you won't want to have sex. Interesting. And he said, and as it is, our sex life is dwindling and dwindling. Oh. So I said, wow, so you equate me going back and forth with eventually not having sex. He said, well, now that you mention it. And then he looked up at me, he said, damn, you're good at this stuff. I said, it's not about being good at it. It's just a principle that I believe in. When we move from criticism to curiosity, the whole world opens up. I never, in my wildest dreams, would have equated that connection with he doesn't get sex. And many of the men out there are probably going, woohoo, yes, that's what it is. And the women are like, you kidding me? Or maybe vice versa. But unless we really asked. Now, I was triggered. I couldn't ask when I was triggered. So you have to get untriggered. But
so you can kind of get to the bottom of it. But when you triggered, you did the right thing. You walked away.
After I screamed and wasn't, But again, criticism is contractive and curiosity is expansive. It's Joanie, I don't know about you, but to me, animals and children, they change our state. We can be in the grumpiest mood, but the reason what they have is they're wildly curious, whether where the ball went, or the little child with their hand, or the box versus the toy itself. They're curious, and that creates expansion. And that to me is
love that. I mean, my mind is going like, I could talk about this for hours because it makes so much sense, and it's so simple to say, let's really think about it, that, what's really going on here.
Exactly.
Sometimes I use the term, so what's really coming up for you? And,
I love that.
just to say, I hear you. I want to know. So tell me what else is going on. What else is coming up for you? And it's like giving permission to say, just tell me, making that safe spot, that safe environment. And that could be another whole coaching session right there. How to create that safe environment.
Well, yeah, it is, because when you really come from curiosity, not feigning curiosity, like, and then what would happen, but like really coming from, I'm really curious. Can you explain that to me? I want to understand. Boy, I don't know about you, but we're so deprived of rapt attention. All this like global communication in our little cubicles. People are hungry to feel seen and heard and gotten.
Big time.
They're ravenous. And so when you provide that for someone, they're like, oh, thank you.
Yes.
You're in their world.
Well, I tell you, this has certainly been very informative. I mean, we should start a whole show just on this.
I know, right? We could.
Because you can go on and on and on. But Lois, I want to make sure everyone knows how to connect with you, your website. Share that with our listeners.
Absolutely. Well, my website is www.loisbarth.com. And my Twitter handle is @LoisBarth. And my email is lois@loisbarth.com. And I'd love to do a book giveaway if I could, Joanie.
Absolutely. Sure.
I would love that. My book, Courage to Sparkle, The Audacious Girl's Guide to Creating a Life That Lights You Up, is actually kind of coming around to the 3rd anniversary, and it's been selected for a relaunch with my new publishing company. So it's going to be relaunched. But in the meantime, it's going to be renamed slightly. In the meantime, I'd love to do a book giveaway. So if you email me at lois@loisbarth.com and say book giveaway, I'm going to put your name randomly in a little hat with a lot of sparkle. I promise the hat will have a lot of sparkle. And then we'll pick a name and you will get a signed copy of the book. And I would love to hear from you.
That's wonderful. Well, Lois, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been very informative, funny, but just naturally organic of how we can help ourselves and the couples of entrepreneurs. That to me is what it's all about. I love being an entrepreneur, but love keeping that couple together stronger.
Keeping it together. Well, thank you, Joanie. I am so glad that we, kept in touch, and you've been so good with that. And I so appreciate the invitation. It's really an honor, and thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
When people stay together in vitalized marriages, boy, talk about a game changer. Every person in their community gets affected by intact, vibrant marriages. So thank you for all the work that you do. And I'm honored to be a guest.
Thank you. Yeah. And then also to our listeners, certainly tune in when we have more probably juicy topics.
Yes.
And also, if you would like to know more about our 8-week program that I mentioned earlier, it is an 8-week entrepreneur spouse support program. Just go to www.entrepreneurspousesupport.com/program. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.